Michael Jackson's Moonwalker is a game where you dance at evil men to save children and also be a robot. It was released for arcades and the Sega Genesis back in 1990, and it's based on the film from 2 years prior, specifically the Smooth Criminal section, in which Michael dances at evil men to save children and also is a robot, but Joe Pesci is in it too. Fans of the film will not be happy, however, with the lack of any level where you transform into a car and murder dozens. The game is a typical beat 'em up, run around these areas, beat up dudes with sick moves, find the children, rinse and repeat until the final boss and you shoot his plane down, credits roll. It's simple, but it works. Controls are smooth, visual presentation is solid, and the 16-bit versions of Smooth Criminal and Thriller sound great to this day. Thinking about Moonwalker got my mind racing about video games based on musicians, because they're very rare. When you think of multimedia projects about a musician, usually you picture a tour or a movie or a TV series. Video games, not so much. But they do exist, and today I'd like to talk about a curated selection of them. A few disclaimers before we jump in further. This is not going to cover rhythm games at large. I already did a whole video about those last year. This is also not going to cover rhythm games focused on one musician or band, as they are still rhythm games. For example, MJ had a whole rhythm game made about him, but instead I'm talking about Moonwalker. And that wasn't the only time MJ was in a game. True, we didn't get Moonwalker 2, but he was included in many games made by Sega. He was in Space Channel 5 and its sequel, he was in Ready to Rumble Boxing Round 2, he worked on the music for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in an unofficial capacity. Michael was ahead of his time in that aspect, working with new technology to reach fans. Who knows, maybe one day I'll do a video on Michael Jackson, and it'll be the saddest video ever made. I started us off in the 90s, but let's rewind the clock a bit to the 80s. Beatle Quest, released in 1985 for the Commodore 64 and ZX Spectrum. This was made with a text-based game creation software called The Quill by a man named Gary Marsh. Look at this box art too, it's lovely. I can't wait to go on a full quest with the Beatles and their music. I never knew the Beatles did their own take on 433. I don't know why this surprised me, but a game made in a text-based game maker is text-based. Let's give it a shot. You are in a bedsitter circa 1969. You recognize it from the hissed sock sitcom vids back home, e.g. Hancock and the Liver Birds. A telephone lies nearby. You can see a pair of knitting needles. What now? Go to bed. Oh, you can't do that. Now what? That's okay. I'll find a calm and reasoned way to, do something else. Let's try examine bed. Ah, there we go. Okay. You're in a bed sit. You can see a young girl about 17. You know what I mean. The way she looks is way beyond compare. How about we read that book? The title reads DIY Pataphysical Science by Apollo C. Vermuth. Dude, I've been dying for the new installment of that. Yeah, I'm so taking that. All right, let's go back. All right, you're at the top of the stairs. I'll go up. Sorry, no way, man. You have the hippie shakes. You need some natural E. What now? Okay, I'm gonna get some natural E. Wait, what do you mean I can't do that? You hear a noise somewhere nearby. What do you mean? Here we go. This is the secret Beatles reference you gotta make when you play this game. Check this out. Shake it like a Polaroid Pic-2. I guess that'll be close enough. You have the hippie shakes. You need some natural E. The game didn't even listen to me on that one. Okay, fine. Go back. What the? This game is toying with me now. This game is just outright toying with me. Okay, wait. Bang, bang, Maxwell's silver hammer comes down upon your head. Bang, bang, Maxwell's silver hammer makes sure that you are dead. You have scored 10 out of 1,000. You have taken 25 turns. Quest terminated.
The laws of the universe, that you attract everything into your life.
I'll be honest, I've watched 2 separate full playthroughs of this game. I don't know what you do or why you're doing it, but you do get Beatles references sometimes, so that's cool. In case you're wondering, by the way, this game was not approved by the Beatles. In an interview, Gary Marsh said the only contact from the Beatles camp he got was from Ringo's dudes telling him to, quote, stop it. Let's skip ahead a couple years. 1988's Amadeus Revenge for the Commodore 64. In this game, you play as Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. You're about to go on stage and perform, but tragedy strikes. That little jerk Antonio Salieri has introduced many false notes into your score. So what do? Shoot all the musicians, of course! It's a shoot 'em up. You dodge the notes fired at you by musicians, you shoot back with conductor batons, I think, and make your way up the sheet music. Once you've reached the top, the game just sort of ends, so you can reflect on the lives you've taken. Also, you can perform Mozart's Concerto in C. All of the senseless musical violence has got me excited. Come on, let's keep this train going. Revolution X. In this game, you are a civilian in a dystopic 1996. You go to see your favorite band, Aerosmith, but they get kidnapped, so it's up to you to rescue them and save the world from the New Order Nation. You'll break them all, no mercy shown. Heaven knows it's got to be this time.
Remember, music is the weapon.
You fight choppers, mutants, a school bus, giant bugs, a desk, boxes, all for the guys who made Love in an Elevator. The harmonies at the end of that song still sound phenomenal to this day, so yeah, this is valid. They deserve to be saved. Revolution X was originally released in the arcades, and people really liked it. I can see why. It's a gory, over-the-top, high-octane shooter. Revolution X also saw ports to various home consoles, and all of them kinda sucked. The game wasn't terribly different, but the complaints came down to low-quality music and voiceover, and bad controls, i.e. it's a light gun game you control with a D-pad. It never had a chance. But if you want to play a shooter with slightly more traditional controls, you can check out Kiss's video game. Kiss: Psycho Circus: The Nightmare Child is a first-person shooter released for the PC and Dreamcast in 2000. The levels are brooding, the enemies are brooding, the bandmates are Wait, these aren't the members of Kiss. So here's the thing. This game is based on Kiss the band technically, but more accurately, it's based on a Todd McFarlane comic, which is based on the band. So Kiss Colonoscopy doesn't have the likenesses of the bandmates outside of the startup screen. There's also no Kiss music in the game, unless you interact with a jukebox in the first level. Then you can hear a minute-long section of the song Psycho Circus, which ends abruptly. Wonderful. It's certainly neat as a piece of the band's history, but if you take off the black and white face-painted glasses, you'll find a standard 90s FPS that hasn't aged all too well. Also, you shouldn't play this on the Dreamcast because that console didn't have a second analog stick, so you have to use the buttons to move. I think Seaman worked on this version. Since we're looking at classic rock bands, let's look at Queen, The Eye.
Did you just look into my eye?
We've got another classic rock band exploring dystopic undertones in their video game, similar to Revolution X. It's also similar in tone with the David Bowie-led video game Omicron: The Nomad Soul, a game that I am excluding from this retrospective on the technicality that it is not based on David Bowie, but just happens to star David Bowie. Alright, this was released in North America 7 years after Freddie Mercury's death and a year after the band's final album. It's not promoting new music, and all the music within comes from past records. Why does this exist? Apparently, the living members of Queen just thought it'd be cool to incorporate their brand and music into a story-based video game. I learned that, and various other things, from this interview with the game's creator and writer, Richard Ashdown. It's like the only record of the game's background. Shout out to the channel Mini-Me, link in the description. The game has you play as Dubrock, an agent of the an oppressive regime that has outlawed all art forms. Dubrock discovers a collection of hard rock music, but is then sentenced to death in the arena. The rest of the game has you fighting and solving puzzles in order to defeat the The presentation is intriguing, the character animations are smooth and natural for the time, and of course, the music rips. In fact, the 5 discs that stored the game also stored the music, and each disc could be played as a CD. The only thing I can bash it for is every other aspect of the game. It's been criticized for being too clunky to control, too obtuse to figure out certain puzzles, and too difficult to play. Not helping is the fact that it's never been re-released and you can't play it anywhere by legal means. Actually, now that I think about it, basically all of these games are no longer available by legal means. I imagine that's mostly due to music licensing costs. Kind of a bummer. Also, look at how this magician guy kills you. That was nothing. That was like a strong pat on the back. What was that? You know, the past 3 games I've looked at have all been about rock bands, but what about hip-hop? That was huge in the 90s. Well, we're in luck, because the Wu-Tang Clan put out their very own game in 1999 for the PlayStation 1.
Are you ready? Are you mad inside? Got you strapped down to your seats?
Oh, look at that. They must have been fans of Queen Bee.
I eat.
Wu-Tang Shaolin Style, or Taste the Pain in Europe, is a game where you brutally murder someone and then run down a hallway in silence. When it's not a pensive life reflection simulator, it's a fighting game for up to 4 players. The closest modern day comparison I could make would be Smash Bros, but it's way more like Power Stone 2.
You are the champion. Keep it up.
Here's something I've never seen before. The gore and blood is censored when you first boot up the game, but you can uncensor it using a cheat code found in the game's manual. For the life of me though, I can't find the reason why they did this. If you know, please leave it in the comments. It's not like it helped with the game's age rating, it's still rated M, and man can this game get gory. Look at all that pixelated PS1 blood. In fact, looking at footage of this game reminded me of another game from around this time. In the 90s, there was a game called Thrill Kill. If you were like me as a kid and ever saw one of those top 10 most dangerous games ever listicles or videos, this was probably somewhere on it. Now, what I did not remember from those listicles and videos is that Thrill Kill never actually came out. The ROM for it is definitely available today, but the game never saw an official release. At least under that name. Wu-Tang Shaolin Style is basically Thrill Kill with a Wu-Tang coat of paint. After Thrill Kill was killed thrillingly, the developers tried to salvage the work they had done, and it just so happened the Wu-Tang was looking to expand their brand in every direction imaginable. Thus, Shaolin Style was born. It's a very interesting story. Check out this Variety article if you'd like to learn more. Upon release, Shaolin Style was met with solid reviews and sales, even if it was sort of left out to rot. Its publisher Activision had a very big hit earlier in 1999 and had fully shifted the marketing budget to that. I don't know, maybe check it out if you're a Wu-Tang fan. Let's stay on hip-hop as we move into the 2000s and check out 2 games all about 50 Cent. You might remember that a key piece of 50's lore is that he was shot multiple times and lived to be a famous musician. The 2005 game 50 Cent Bulletproof is a dramatization of what happened after that fabled event. Lots of high-profile personnel worked on it too. 50 Cent was heavily involved, a bunch of his cohorts appear in the game, the guy who wrote the game's story not only wrote the 50 Cent movie, but also worked on The Sopranos, and when you put it all together, you get a run-of-the-mill 2005 third-person shooter. The production around it is certainly remarkable, the music is solid, the voice acting is pretty good, it's just that actually playing it today, it feels clunky as hell. You could also play the PSP version, which has the same story, but its gameplay is from a top-down perspective. That one's not beating the clunky allegations either. Bulletproof did sell more than 1 million copies though, so of course a sequel was bound to happen. 50 Cent Blood on the Sand in 2009. I wonder what the story of this one is. 50 Cent and his favorite friends are playing a show in the Middle East. After the show, he finds out that the promoter can't pay him $10 million, but he can give him a diamond-encrusted my script says encrusted, a diamond-encrusted skull, but that skull is stolen by a terrorist group, so you, as 50 Cent, the famous rapper, have to go around the Middle East killing hundreds to get the skull back. Yeah, so this is just a bonkers story to follow up the relatively grounded plot of Bulletproof, and I'm not sure if a game that's basically musician goes to the Middle East to murder countless people has aged well, but there's a noticeable energy shift in the gameplay. It's actually a decent step up from Bulletproof. Same genre, of course, third-person shooter, but the action is heightened overall. More enemies, more up-close kills, more taunts, more choppers, like an insane amount of choppers that you fight. For real, every boss is a chopper, apparently because 50 Cent's son wanted them in the game. You even get scored on your performance, giving the game a real arcadey feel. It all makes you feel like you're 50 Cents. Sadly, Blood on the Sand sold far worse than Bulletproof, so it's unlikely we'll ever get a 50 Cent game again. But still, it's cool we got 2. Yeah, take the choppers down! You know, I'm just realizing something. Most of the games that I've been looking at in this video have been very grisly, very mature, very much about, blood and killing and dismemberment and just like very not family friendly, very not mature, very much about for all blood. Ages. I don't really know if that's to do with dismemberment, shooting, the video games, just like very not brutalizing, very not perceived fan base. I don't know if I really know if getting these games made about video games on video games industry at the time. There's just a lot of fan base. But we could do something a little bit more family friendly this time. Hannah Montana for the Nintendo DS. One day, young Miley Stewart is given a note by her father. The note says that someone knows who she really is, international pop star Hannah Montana. So Miley and her friend Lily have to find the person who could reveal her secret Monticret identity. Hannah Montana DS is not a shooter. I'm as shocked as you are. It's a point-and-click adventure game where you, as Miley, search for clues in a variety of locations. It's structured into 3 sections, with each one being a new story of someone trying to out Miley's identity. Sort of like 3 episodes of the show. You'll interact with characters from the show like Mikey, Jolena, Bomb Boom, and Mr. Napkin. I didn't watch Hannah Montana as a kid. I was way more into like Chowder or something. Conversations are guided by your decisions, and you can choose which dialogue options to say by making the corresponding drawing on your touchscreen. In fact, everything in this game revolves around the touchscreen, even opening doors, which is good because that's how I open doors. And every so often, you play a mini-game just to feel alive again. By the end, you learn that the mysterious culprit who wants to reveal Miley's identity is... Are you ready? Okay, so the first section turns out to just be a dream, the culprit in the second section is one of Miley's cooks, and the third section's culprit is no one. The whole thing was a ruse for Miley to get out of the house so her family could throw her a birthday party. Y'all, nice gesture, but that's kind of extreme, right? Couldn't they have just been like, hey Lily, take Miley to the mall for like 2 hours, wink wink. Okay, let's go back to the violence. I've held off for a while, but there is a very famous series of musician-based video games that I have not touched on at all, and arguably this is the most famous of them all. The Def Jam series. In the 90s, EA and developer Aki cranked out a ton of games based on the WCW and WWF, but once the 2000s hit, the WWE bought them both and revoked EA's license. So Aki went back to the drawing board to see what they could do with this wrestling game engine they had. After some brainstorming, the team landed on a game centered around hip-hop. And as luck would have it, Def Jam's president at the time was keen to enter the video game space in a greater capacity. Once again, a super interesting story that is detailed in this OK Player article linked in the description. This meeting of the minds gave us 3 fighting games between 2001 and 2010, starting with
Def Jam Vendetta.
Vendetta as a game is exactly what that little backstory would lead you to believe. A standard wrestling game, but with Def Jam artists like Ludacris, Method Man, DMX, and so on. Mechanically, it's sound, but its real draw is a full-on story mode, where you play as a street-fighting upstart rising in an underground league to fight the head honcho, D-Mob, who is voiced by Christopher Judge, aka Kratos. This really takes you back to a time when games were not woke, where you could just choose your girlfriend on a screen. Why can't you choose a girlfriend in Shrek Super Slam? I worry someone is gonna take me seriously, so to be clear, I don't believe in woke outrage. I don't want more games to let me choose a girlfriend, and Shrek Super Slam already lets you choose a girlfriend, you just have to know the cheat code. The game sold very well and scored super high with critics, so of course we got a sequel. 2004's Def Jam Fight for New York. In every way, this is an improvement over Vendetta, to the point where it's considered one of the 2000's best licensed games and best wrestling games. And it's played competitively to this day. That's how great this game is. More moves, more mechanics, more characters, more story, more Snoop. The third game in the series was the first for HD consoles, the first not made by Aki, but also the last one, period. Def Jam Icon. The focus on brawling is still present, but there's also a greater connection to music. The stages react to the music being played, and each fighter can change the music to their song by doing this turntable motion. I like that idea a lot, but the game that it's built around was not well received. There's just this detached feeling when you play it. The controls feel stiff, and the lack of a UI means you can't tell how a match is going. You just hit each other until one of you doesn't get up again. Cool game. And the last game I want to talk about. Do I even need to say it? Crazy Frog Arcade Racer released in the US in 2006. It's technically the second game in the series, as the first one only came out in the UK. I won't be talking about that one, not because it's terrible, but because it doesn't have Axel F in it. How are you gonna make a game with him and not have his signature song? Thankfully, the sequel rectifies that. What it does not rectify is the quality. The game still stinks. It's the most basic-ass kart racer you could possibly play, but it does set itself apart with the slippiest controls I've ever seen in a racing game. Are you back on the bottle again? The tracks are all based on Crazy Frog's classic music videos, but there's something off about them. They feel loopy and liminal, so it's hard to remember specific landmarks even after multiple laps. I will give the game this though, it provides a greater understanding of who inhabits Crazy Frog's world. You've got the man himself in both classic and holiday attire, the drone who chases him in the Axel F video, Ellie the fairy, a ninja gorilla, hip-hop stereotype but purple, and a deranged serial killer. Truly a roster for the ages. Again, that was just a selection of video games based on musicians. There are more about the likes of Journey, Devo, Spice Girls, Blues Brothers, Iron Maiden, Prince, Motley Crue, Frankie Goes to Hollywood for some reason, but maybe I'll talk about those another time. In the past decade, there haven't really been any video games based on musicians aside from the occasional mobile phone game. Why that's happened is up for debate. Maybe it's due to the increasingly high costs of making big budget video games. Maybe record labels find it easier to license music out to existing games like Fortnite Festival. Maybe video games just aren't the way musicians want to connect with their fans these days. But I think there is an opportunity in modern times for a musician-based video game. And I want to preface this by saying, I don't think this game should exist. I just think it would be very successful. Here's the idea. Def Jam, but with pop girls. This would be a brawler, but instead of rappers on Def Jam, it would be beloved pop stars. Think of the matches. Taylor and Katie have bad blood, they won't once they fight it out. Olivia and Sabrina were both chasing the same guy. How about they chase honor in battle? Charlie and Lord working it out on the remix? Nah, let them work it out in the ring. You might think that idea is incredibly disrespectful and crass and rude, and to be clear, I would agree. Again, I don't think this game should exist. I'm just saying, if it were to exist, it would do so well. You may think this game would be tasteless because it pits women against each other for the benefit of a gleefully sadistic audience. Okay, so that's like Stan Twitter, right? Stan Twitter and Stan TikTok? They're basically doing the same thing on a day-to-day basis. The stans would buy this game in record numbers. Imagine all of the fan cams they would make out of like Dua Lipa drop-kicking Tate McRae or Billie Eilish getting Ava Max in a Boston Crab. Also, let's be totally honest, there is a portion of the world's population who would get a kick out of beating up a virtual Taylor Swift. Unhealthy behavior, absolutely, they shouldn't want to. I'm just saying, they do probably exist. Anyway, that's my idea. Whoever makes it is probably going to hell, but if any of you take that risk, please send me a royalty check for $1 million so that I can make my game that is basically Dynamite Cop, but with Zorado. See ya, everybody!